Hey everybody, Russ here at Shaper, and we just finished today's show on this impossible joint. And I guess I'm spilling the beans at this point, that this joint is in fact possible. It must be.
Yep. But it is a dovetail all the way around. We're going to show you how to cut it with Origin and how to design it in Studio.
That's right. So if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. And we had a lot of fun on this one. So if you like this video, just make sure to like and subscribe.
And join us live sometime. But for now, enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name's Jake.
And I'm Russ.
And today, we are doing the impossible. Seemingly so.
I hope it's not. We got a crazy joint to talk about today. This is the impossible joint. I think this is the detail camera over here. Yeah, okay, we've got a dovetail, but we also have another dovetail. How does it assemble? How is it cut? How does it go together? Today, we're going to walk you through it with Shaper Origin.
Yeah, not only how to cut it, but how to make it in Studio.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
It's going to be a pretty heady one, so buckle up. We're going to cut one and assemble it. We're not really even going to go into the details there. Then we'll show you how to design it in Studio. And then we're going to cut the whole thing, both sides, start to finish, talking through all of the settings, all of the math, because there's a little math involved in this one that we had to do to figure it out. And by the end of it, you might need to rewatch this. We'll send you the replay link, but you will be able to cut the impossible joint.
Yeah.
Which I think, you always ask, Jake, where's the board stretcher?
I know.
I think this is actually the coolest way to lengthen a piece of wood that you might have cut too short. I'm imagining a chair leg with this in there, and I think that is cool as heck.
Oh, especially, yeah, it would be attention grabbing. All right, as always, folks, this is a live show, so please make use of that chat box, ask your questions. Ted is in the chat?
Ted's in the chat.
Ted's in the chat.
Ted's in the chat. Ian's on the switchboard today.
Nice. And he's going to be answering any of the questions that come through. He's going to save all the juicy ones for us at the end, where we will answer them during our Q&A.
And giveaway. Q&A and giveaway. Remember, hang on till the middle of the show where we're going to pop up a poll question for you to answer to enter that giveaway. And then hang on to the end where we're going to give away some cool stuff. Definitely a dovetail bit is going to be in there.
Definitely.
Probably an 8mm collet to go along with it.
Yep.
So hang on for that. Should we cut the second half of this joint? Let's show what you've... well, no, actually, I'm not going to show what you've already done.
Just go into it.
I think we should just cut it. We're going to leave the mystery till the end until it's assembled.
Yes.
But we can see what's going on Origin here. Jake's got a joint to cut, and we've got 2 steps that we're going to go through here. You're going to clear this out with a 1/4-inch bit, just the stock 1/4-inch bit that comes with Origin, and then you're going to go ahead and cut the actual dovetail portion of that, right?
Yeah.
And this is the outside cut. We're using the same file for both of these. Again, this is going to get pretty heady, but just hang on and it's all going to explain itself. Let's just say we're using the same file for both, but this is the outside cut portion. And for that, we're going to cut outside first to the line with the 1/4-inch bit and then come back with the dovetail bit with a negative offset to take off even more material. Okay, I've talked enough. Yeah, let's cut.
All right.
We like doing this first without explaining too much because it gives folks a minute to join the show and to catch up with what's going on, say hello to each other, drop your name and where you're from in the chat. We love seeing where everybody's tuning in from. We got a couple from Australia last time and somebody from Portugal who I was super impressed by. That's some long-distance live streaming. For anyone who's new to Shaper Origin and the Shaper system, you might have picked up your Origin during our spring deal that just ended. If you did, welcome. We're going to talk about this more, but we've got some Origin basic trainings coming up next week. This is a pretty advanced show. So if some of it's going over your head, that's okay. We've got those basic trainings coming up next week that are going to get you up to speed. We like doing some advanced shows. We like doing some simpler shows, but we are going to go back with the file for this one and walk through everything start to finish. But for now, where we're at, Jake is doing the outside cuts on this template. cleaning those just right up to the line with the 1/4-inch bit. And then he's going to come back in with the dovetail bit to cut beyond the line, kind of undercut that, and give us these the second part that should fit with the first one that we cut before the show. This was already gridded. We're going to talk about gridding for this in the second half of the show. We're going to talk about stock size, design in studio, all that. The important thing to keep in mind right now is just that Jake is pressing the green button to start, riding along that line in the direction that the dotted line is moving, nice and smoothly, and then pressing the red button to finish. As he's moving this around, Origin is automatically auto-correcting with super fine, precise movements 100% of the time in real time to keep him exactly on the line. Now, are we going down in depth here, Jake, or are we going down in offset? Looks like we're going down, yep, to 0.5-inch depth. And we're doing this in 1/4-inch steps at a time here. It's because we've got this 1/4-inch bit. We're not trying to go too hard on it. Nice. Last depth, cleaning that up. We've got a small offset here that's going to allow these to these roughing cuts to be a little bit heavier. Then we'll come back and just clean those up at the end. What do you think? How are we looking?
Looking good. I was just using larger offsets to get rid of that extra material down the middle.
I see. So we're going to actually have a little bit more material to remove with this dovetail bit then, because we had a positive offset on that, yeah?
No, we're right up to the line.
Oh, we're right up to the line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. I just got ahead of myself.
I see.
All right, dovetail in. We're using the shaper dovetail, 15-degree.
15-degree taper angle, 13.8 millimeter outer diameter. And that's the important number to keep in track for this show when we're looking at setting the diameter for Origin on the screen here and using that to calculate our offsets and things like that.
Go, making sure depth when cutting dovetails is always very crucial, so you want to make sure that you're diligent on your Z-touches. And I'm doing a negative
0.144.
Let's do it in 2 steps just so we
Oh,
minimize.
yeah? Okay.
Yeah. 0.05. Okay, and I'm going to pause and add a little bit of blue tape.
Okay, the blue tape. So we're going to do this dovetail cut in 2 steps just to make it a little bit lighter on the bit. You said we're going to negative 0.05-inch offset for the first cut, and then a minus 0.144-inch offset on the second cut. And the reason for that, again, is because for this second half of the cut, we already did the first cut. Over here for the second cut, we're going beyond the line to make sure that the 2 angles of that dovetail overlap each other. And we're doing this in 2 steps to make it easier on the bit. A negative offset is always going to remove more material, so we're going to go to a minus 0.05-inch to start to remove just a little bit extra material, and then a minus 0.144 to take it all the way up to the edge to where we want to be. And we're going to talk all through where these numbers are coming from in the second half of the show, but there's some trigonometry involved, so we're going to hold off on exactly the source of these numbers. Just take our word for minus 0.144. And we'll see if it works.
All right, you're going to see me glancing down here a lot too, because I am making sure that I don't cut into my workstation.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get after it.
Very important with dovetail bits and cutting dovetails. It's an undercut, so you want to make sure that you're going well past the material before you retract, and also that you have plenty of clearance before you plunge. This dovetail cutter is actually a little bit bigger than the circle of the corrective range on origin there. Normally, for a smaller bit, like keyhole cutter, we can use that corrective range circle as kind of like a safe zone. But for this one, we can't. We need to make sure that we have even a little bit more room beyond that. And coming down for that fourth pass, so we're going to have 2 positives on this, cutting away 3 dovetail negatives, or half on each side and a big one in the middle, and we're going to have 2 positives sticking up here. All right, nice. Now taking that down to that final minus 0.144 inch offset. So this is going to take about another 0.09 inches off of this cut. It's going to be a little heavier, but same rules apply. Make sure you plunge on the outside of your cut. Cut all the way through nice and smoothly. Make sure you don't retract inside that cut, because again, this dovetail cutter is undercutting. You're going to put a big hole in your piece if you do that. And then continue on past the end. Make sure you give yourself a little bit of clearance there. Go ahead and retract. And Jake's got blue tape on all this because whatever we can do to mitigate blowout on this is going to be better. A couple of wraps of blue tape definitely helps. Maybe sandwiching this piece between 2 pieces of sacrificial stock would help as well. Definitely more cumbersome for the show, but if you're doing this in your own shop at home, adding some sacrificial stock, definitely not a bad idea.
All right.
How'd we do?
We did good. And that did mitigate any blowout too.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to do a gentle test fit before pulling this out?
I think so.
Very important when you're doing this gentle test fit to make sure that we don't move the part too much. But yeah, I think if it slides a little bit in, then it can be persuaded to go the rest of the way with the mallet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it doesn't even need it. All right.
All right, that extra 2 thou.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about that offset before the show. I said, why don't we add an extra 2 thou? We always make it a little tight for the show. I think we should aim for nice and easy.
Well, it's a fun one, too, if you have it sitting around your shop to be able to take apart and actually show people how it's done.
Look at that. All right, take that back apart. How does this thing work?
There we go. So we're coming in at an angle, a 45-degree angle.
You said that so nonchalantly, but that's the whole trick.
That is the whole trick.
We're coming in at a 45-degree angle. It's not a dovetail going this way and a dovetail going this way. It's 2 dovetails going at a 45-degree angle. It's very misleading if you just look at it from the outside.
Yeah.
So, like, how the heck did you do that? But there we go, 45 degrees. That's the secret. And now you know. So, should we design this in studio so folks know how we arrived at this point?
Yes, because you said there was going to be math involved, and I'm very curious.
There's not going to be math involved in the studio part, but there is math involved in arriving at that 0.144 inch offset.
Yes.
What is that number? Where does that come from? That's not a fraction. That's not anything that makes sense to me. What's 0.144 for? What's 0.1444?
Extra 4.
We're going to get there. First, we're going to draw this in Studio. So you've seen this before on Jake's Origin, but let's pop over to the computer. This is what we are going to end up drawing here. There are a couple of steps to get there, but you can see this is our stock, and these are our dovetail cuts, which are going to be both inside and outside cuts. Again, we're using the same file for both the positive and negative of this joint. I think that's the easiest way to do this stuff in Studio. And as long as you follow along with the show, I think you'll agree. So let's go ahead and just delete all of this and start again. First step I always like to do is draw my stock. Make shape, rectangle. Now this is critically important. We want to make this exactly the size of our stock, which is in our case 1.75 by 1.75. But if you're off by even just a couple thousandths of an inch, bust out your shaper calipers for this. If you're off by even a couple thousandths of an inch, you want to adjust that design in Studio to match the actual size of your stock. And I'll show you why after we have all this drawn. In the computer, it's going to be really easy to see, but it's going to actually offset the dovetails because we're going on an angle if your stock is bigger or smaller than you expect.
Yeah.
So make sure that you get your stock perfectly square and that you've got that dimension locked in. Okay, now how do we draw those 45-degree angled rectangles? Well, the key that I want is that I want them to be snapped to the center point of this top and bottom edge because I want those dovetails to be centered on the edges of my square. So what I'll do here is I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now, critically, the width, what do I want that to be? I know this is a 13.8 millimeter bit. I'm going to make this 15 millimeters wide so that I know that I have some clearance. Studio does that math for you. I'll make this 3 inches tall just to make sure that it extends far beyond what I need. And I'll snap this rectangle to this bottom corner here. Now, here's a preview of what we're going to do for all of these. I'm going to take this and I'm going to choose the anchor point that coincides with the position that I want to pin it to. I want to rotate around this point, and I'm going to rotate it by 45 degrees. So we have the beginnings of a through dovetail across this corner here. So let's do that again. Make shape. Let's make this 15 millimeters wide, 3 inches tall. Snap this one here. And I'm going to make a bunch of these and snap them all in place. This one's going to snap to the top center edge. And let's make another one and snap the bottom of this to that top center edge. And all of these are going to have their anchor points coincident with the edge of my stock. It's going to be rotated 45 degrees. This one is below that top edge, so I'm going to pick this point, rotate 45 degrees. This one, I want this bottom center point, and I'm going to rotate that 45 degrees. Okay, this is starting to look familiar. Now, I want a bounding box on this so that I don't go so far as to cut into my workstation. I'm going to make that bounding box just a little bit bigger than the original. I think 3 by 3 is good for this. That's about 5/8 oversized in any direction, which is a little bit bigger than the router bit that we're using. And then I can pick all of these by holding Shift and clicking, hit Shapeshifter, and here's what I want to keep for those. Impossible joint. Now, okay, why is it so important to make sure that your stock is exactly the right size? Because if I take this and let's say let's say that I've gone like way off the rails here and I've got 3 inch by 3 inch stock. Well, look at what happened to my dovetails. So these are way off center now because they've gone toward this upper right and lower left hand corners. So this is why it's so important to make sure that your stock is exactly the right size. If I go below what I've got, let's see what happens if I do 1 1/4 by 1 1/4. Then my dovetails are like way on the opposite end. They've gone out to the upper left and bottom right. I'm barely cutting anything at all. So you want to make sure that your rectangle for this is exactly the size of the stock that you're using. And it looks kind of optical illusion-y, but this line is going to be exactly as long as this line over here, even though this one might look a little bit shorter just because of the perspective.
Definitely does,
here.
yeah.
I know, isn't that weird? But if you've got your stock size set and you work off the centers of the edges of that stock and just rotate everything 45 degrees from those centers, follow along with those steps, and you're going to have the impossible joint.
Sweet.
And we're going to use the same file to do two cuts. We're going to do an inside cut and we're going to do an outside cut. The inside cut is going to give us the, well, let's see. Is this the one that you just cut?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is the one that you cut before the show.
Yes.
Yeah, so the inside cut is going to give you, can you guys see that pretty well? Yeah, the inside cut's going to give you these two, and then the outside is going to give you this set. And you'll note that if I look at this from the top down, the inside cut on this is actually giving me this bottom width because I'm using the width of the dovetail cutter set at 0 for the inside cut. We want this bottom width to match the top width of this dovetail. But if we're cutting based on this bottom edge and trying to get it to match this top face, we need to actually undercut that by the distance that that dovetail cutter protrudes, that angle that it protrudes.
This is where the math comes in.
This is where the math comes in. And we're going to get to that because this was all pretty heady. Before we get to cutting the second half of this, I want to give everybody a little break. Okay. So we're going to play some fun videos. We also have a poll question for you guys, which is just, what are you struggling with on Origin right now? If anything, the answer can be nothing. That's fine. But it's really valuable to us to know what you're struggling with on Origin because we're here to teach. We're here to help you solve your problems.
Right.
Whatever you're struggling with, we want to know so that we can make a session about it. So Ian's going to pull up that poll question. Make sure that you answer that. That's going to enter you to win our giveaway at the end of the show, which I'm sure there's going to be a dovetail cutter included in that. I'll probably call it. We got a couple of things to give away at the end here.
Yeah. For now, we have a little sneak peek, or
well, this isn't even a sneak peek.
It's a release.
This is something that's out. So a couple of fun things to talk about. The first one, last show we teased the Phil Morley Masterclass that's coming out soon.
Yes.
But I didn't even know that the team was already working on another one that's out even sooner. And this one is right up my alley. I love this stuff. It is all about steam bending. It's like an hour of instructional information on steam bending from Tim Kopetsky, who's a master steam bender in Germany. So to remind everybody who's watching, check this out, shapertools.com/masterclass. This is where you're going to find all of these. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, we're in the double digits now, masterclasses. And you can see some of the topics that we're studying in these: chair making, surface design, marquetry, hand planes, steam bending, guitar making, lutherie, green and green furniture, furniture design, box making start to finish, hand tool woodworking. These are all super valuable nuggets of wisdom in here from super pro furniture makers, designers, craftspeople. And this is the one that we just launched. So check this out at shapertools.com/masterclass. Ian up on the switchboard has the intro video for this to play for us. And so let's just check it out.
Moin, ich bin Tim Kopetsky. Ich bin Schreinermeister und beim Holzbiegewerk Winkler als Werkstattleiter angestellt. Ich entwickle unsere Techniken weiter und versuche Sachen zu ermöglichen, die bis jetzt mit Holzbiegen eigentlich noch nicht möglich sind. Wir biegen Holz für Handläufe oder Möbel im Außenbereich oder Elemente im Holzbau und versuchen damit halt einen neuen Markt für unsere alte Technik zu finden. Und dabei natürlich auch immer die Technik nach den neuen Bedürfnissen weiterzuentwickeln. Und aus dieser Erfahrung würde ich euch gerne so ein bisschen die Möglichkeit geben, was mitzunehmen und noch was dazu zu lernen und selbst Holz zu biegen. In der Schreinerei sind es überwiegend gerade Schnitte und rechte Winkel. Beim Holzbiegen ist der kreative Gestaltungsspielraum deutlich größer. Und man braucht auch die Kreativität, um seine Probleme zu lösen. Es ist ultra faszinierend, was überhaupt machbar ist. Kaum jemand rechnet damit, was mit Holzbiegen wirklich möglich ist. Und das erstaunt nicht nur andere gestandene Handwerker, sondern auch mich immer wieder. Was die Leute aus dieser Masterclass mitnehmen sollen, ist das grobe Handwerkzeug, um selbst Biegeversuche anzustellen. Wichtig für Schreinerei allgemein, aber Holzbiegen im Speziellen ist es, denke ich, dass man kreativ und mutig ist und sich auch nicht von Rückschlägen unterkriegen lässt, sondern jeden Fehler eigentlich als Chance für Verbesserung wahrnimmt.
Awesome.
Those are huge pieces of wood.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Cool. So we encourage everyone to go check out the entire video. It is awesome.
Yeah, it's a set of 6 topics
Yeah.
at least. Just insane amount of knowledge. So check it out. Couple other announcements.
Yes.
This is a really heady, difficult shaper session to follow along with. Stay tuned, like, don't ditch us. But next week, we have an Origin Basics session coming up. I wouldn't
Yeah.
even call it a session. It's like really focused on intro to Origin
Yeah.
and the complete shaper system. We're doing this 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. We sent out invites to a lot of folks, but if you want an invite and you didn't get one, reach out to us at hello@shapertools.com, and we'll make sure to get you hooked up with that because we want as many people to be comfortable with the basics as possible.
Yeah. That will go from unboxing to making your first cuts to how to work workstation and how to set up plate. So
Yeah. And I want to put out a save the date here.
some events.
Yeah. One event that we did last year that I just loved, Fine Woodworking New England at the Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking. This is May 9th and 10th, and I would drive there from a few states away.
Yeah.
To spend at least a day there. This was so cool. We're going to be there. Shaper's going to be there. But then there are also going to be lectures from incredible woodworkers. There are going to be demonstrations. There are going to be example pieces of furniture, like beautiful period style stuff, tool vendors, used tool sale.
Oh, the antique tool tables outside were incredible last year.
Yeah. So swing through. That's May 9th and 10th at the Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking. Mark your calendars. We'll see you there.
Nice. Shop tour.
Shop tour. Yeah, this is a fun one. This is from Clay. It's great. Let's watch it.
All right, y'all.
False alarm. It's coming.
All right, y'all said you wanted to see small and messy shops. And you're about to get that here. This is my shop building. And it's messy. There's some boxes that I hadn't thrown away yet from stuff that I bought. And that's cedar lumber that came from cedar trees that were on my property that we had cleared. Got some 2x4s and 4x4 posts and then some 1x3 tongue and groove. I'm going to build a outdoor cart for my big green egg with that. All right, we're inside my small and messy shop. There's a slab I'm going to build a coffee table, make a coffee table out of. There's my printer, a little air compressor, and these are panels I'm going to build an entertainment cabinet out of. I've been rubbing those down with some Danish oil. And over there's my miter saw, my band saw, and my table saw, and I got to keep those on carts so I can move them out when I need them and move them back away when I need the room. There's my messy table for my shaper workstation there. This is some stuff I just ordered from Rockler. Some slides for the entertainment cabinet I'm building. And then over there's my joiner planer. And then just clamps hung around wherever I can find a place for them. That's a cool little stool that I use a lot, made out of leather and wood. But out there, they're working on my new shop. Be bigger, cleaner, nicer. So, anyway, you said small and messy. So there you go.
That wasn't that messy.
It wasn't that messy, and it wasn't that small. It's a freestanding building. That is an awesome shop.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Clay. Appreciate you sending it to us.
Totally. If you want to have your shop tour featured on Sessions, reach out to us at sessions@shapertools.com. We're kind of stacked until June
Don't tell them
at
that.
this point. Yeah, well, it's just everybody's got
We
to
ran
know what to
out very
expect.
recently.
We ran out recently. We're stacked till June
Yeah.
again, but keep them coming still. We love to see them. All right, I've got one more thing to share. This is a project based on our last session. It wasn't done just in the last 2 weeks, but Jim sent this to us. Jim's a longtime watcher of Sessions. He said, hey, saw your session on tambour doors. Have to share with you the tambour cabinet that I just built. So I've got this pulled up on my laptop here. Let's check this out. This is beautiful.
That's
Look at the
tambour
casework on that.
Whole nother level.
That's a huge tambour, and he hid the whole sliding assembly behind these panels on the inside, which I love. So we were talking about how do you hide the fabric on the last show. This has panels back, left, and right.
That is
And it kind of
tasteful.
covers the sides there too. So let's go next one. Perfectly made to fit. This little nook may as well be a built-in. This is like made to measure. I love that. Here it is in the shop with the doors closed. I think it's so tasteful. Cherry and brass. Looks like cherry and brass.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah. So thank you, Jim, for sending that in. Love to see it. All right.
Nice.
I've got one more thing that I neglected to do with this studio design, and everybody watching this is going to love to see this. We got to share this design so people can go to Shaper Hub and sync it up.
Yep.
I would recommend that you take a minute, get the practice, and do this yourself again, because you're going to need to rebuild this file if you have any deviation from this 1.75 inch material.
Yeah.
But if you can nail it on the planer, let's go ahead and share this. So I'll show you guys how to do that, because we should practice this on the show. Share your designs. Main menu, share design. We're going to make this listed so everybody can see it. Impossible joint. It's impossible. Or is it? Save. That's it. That's all you need to do. Now folks can find your design on Shaper Hub. You can also share this link with your friends. Check out whenever you make a studio design that's worth sharing. Share it with the community. That's great.
Very cool.
You can find that on Shaper Hub.
Yeah.
All right, now we've got a lot of cutting to do, and we're going to slow this way down so that we can walk through every setting step by step. We've got 2 sides to cut. What are you working on right now, Jake?
Just kind of looking at my grain orientation to minimize tear out. I think that's how I'm going to do it.
That's genius. Wait, so what are you doing there?
I want the length of the grain, if you go to that overhead, maybe. Our cut is kind of going this way, so I want my grain to also go that way, if I can help it.
Wow. I never would have thought of that.
We're going to clamp this up, and I was not rushing through these cuts because this is just not the type of project you want to rush through. Don't be trying to make an impossible joint in a pinch, because you want to take your time with it. You want it to be nice and tight. You want to make sure that everything is lined up properly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a dovetail cutter, so you got to make sure that you're very mindful
Mm-hmm.
as not to retract during your cut.
Mm-hmm. We learned a few things as we were clamping this up in the first place. So what are we using for this setup? We're using the 2 vertical locating pins on that left side of workstation over here.
Yep.
And what I found for best success is I want to place my first clamp between those two locating pins, and this clamp, when it exerts that pressure, it's kind of pushing everything out toward the left as this thing flexes and bends away. So that's going to push that piece really well into those pins, and then lock it into place with that lower clamp.
All right. Next thing is we want to be very aware of where we're putting our support bar. And all of this, you heard me say earlier, I'm kind of eyeballing my bit to make sure that when I plunge, I am not going to zing the inside of either my support bar or my workstation.
Right, which I already got the support bar once, and you got the workstation
And I did the
once,
workstation just before the show.
Yeah.
So honestly, if your workstation doesn't have a zing in it, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Try harder.
All right, so that is just set temporarily. I have my engraving bit backwards as my probing bit in there.
We're doing all of the most correct things here. We're going to take everything super by the book. So engraving bit for that nice round probe.
And let's pretend like that isn't there already because we're going to probe rectangle.
Yeah, when I was designing this in studio, I thought that it was just easiest to make sure everything was located around that center point. What's the easiest way to get the center point with origin? It's going to be probe rectangle now. We're just going to probe all four sides of this piece of stock, and it's going to give us the perfect center point of this square.
I also just get such a kick out of making a probe rectangle.
It's just fun,
It's
isn't
just
it?
fun. All right, that gives us a center point on our stock.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna grab the impossible joint
Mm-hmm.
and place it right at 0, 0.
That's it.
Cool.
Now, I didn't encode any depths for this, and I didn't set inside or outside cut because we're going to be messing with the inside and outside cut a lot, and we're going to be just going to a 1/2 inch, but I didn't want there to be any auto pass confusion, encoded depth confusion. We're just going to type everything in really explicitly on this. We don't want to use auto pass for this, obviously, with the dovetail bit because we don't want that ramp at all. We just want to plunge down and then cut through. So you're getting set up for the 1/4 inch bit here.
I am.
Let's go through all of the settings. First is the router bit diameter, right?
Yep.
So we're going to set that to a 1/4 inch, and we're going to Z-touch. Jake, you said you like to Z-touch off of the center of the stock.
Yeah. I do, but you were saying you like going off of workstation.
I like going off a workstation. Here's what's important for this. Because these depths have to be super precise between all the bits, I would recommend Z-touching off of the exact same point. Wherever that point is that you choose, just make sure that everything is Z-touched off that same point so you have the exact same reference. Just in case anything in your setup is just a little bit off, we want everything to be as accurate as possible.
All right, well, let's try your way.
Okay, so if something goes wrong, it can be because of my Z-touch location.
Right off of the surface of workstation.
Yeah, off of the surface of workstation there.
Bingo.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, now here's our first tricky setting is going to be the clearing offset. I mean, yeah, let's set this to an inside cut so that we can see what's going on. It's going to be the clearing offset for these 1/4 inch cuts.
Right.
And for that, we need this to be, again, minus 0.144 inches. So you're going to type that in, but let's also talk now about why that needs to be minus 0.144 inches. And to talk about this, I drew a nice little diagram up here, right? Okay, so here's our dovetail bit. Here is the bottom of that bit. Here's that final area that we're going to clear away. But you'll notice this comes in up to the top here, and there's a distance between the outside of the dovetail cutter at the bottom and the inside of the top there. We don't want the 1/4 inch bit to go beyond this line. That's where we want it to stop. Now, how do we find out this distance? This is why these depths are so important. We know that this distance here is 0.5 inches from the top to the bottom. That's the depth that Jake's plunging. We know because this is a 15-degree dovetail bit that this angle here is 15 degrees, Well, how do we find this dimension, x, here at the bottom? You could bust out a pen and paper or a calculator, and remember, dig deep in the caverns of your brain for your high school trigonometry. Or you can just search the internet for a triangle calculator, which is what I like to do. So here on the screen, we've just got triangle calculator, okay? This one doesn't have quite enough information. I like this one here, triangle calculator. Okay, now, looking at the whiteboard, what dimensions do we have? At the top here, this is 15 degrees. We actually don't know what the length of this side is. This side here is 0.5 inches long, and this corner down at the bottom, despite what this diagram looks like, this is actually 90 degrees here. We do that and calculate. Okay, what is side C if we zoom in here? This is 0.134 inches. 0.134. So if we go back here, x equals 0.134 inches. That's where we started before this show. We discovered that, you always need to fudge it a little bit to get your mortise and tenon to fit, to get your dovetails to fit. We needed 10,000ths of an inch beyond that to make sure that everything fits together really smoothly for the show. So we're going to add plus 0.01 inches. That's going to be 0.144.
Nice.
There we go.
Now I'm only going to apply that to my second, right? The first one I'm just going to cut to what is essentially 0, but it's actually 0.134.
Here's what's important. For the first one, you're going to cut the dovetail to 0, but the 1/4 inch bit, you can't cut to 0. The 1/4 inch bit, you need to apply this offset to. For the second one, it's the other way around, because if we look at the whiteboard for the second cut, we're using this same template here, but we're coming at it from the other direction. So we can actually cut with the 1/4 inch bit right up to this line, but we need the dovetail there to cut an extra 0.144 inches. So here we're using that offset on the 1/4 inch bit, and on the second cut we're going to use that on the dovetail.
All right.
Does that make sense to everybody? I hope it makes sense enough. Rewatch this video on YouTube if you want to see that one more time.
Okay.
Feeling set up for this?
I feel set up. I'm going to scoot this in just a tad. What I'm doing is I'm positioning myself like right at the farthest point of where that cutter is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go as far as to do an air cut, to drop the bit and just see where it's actually going to land.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure that you're not going to cut into your workstation.
Nice.
The next thing
that
we're going to be conscious of is I want to make sure the origin is well planted the entire time I'm making this cut. So I'm actually going to cut at just a little bit of an angle, making sure that I'm always on that support bar.
Yeah, we usually say don't do this. We usually say cut straight ahead, but here's a little trade-off. We're going to trade off a little bit of the absolute optimum accuracy of origin for the benefit of making sure that that corner reaches all the way out to the support bar, to make sure that the whole thing is totally stable during this cut, because you see every side of this cut. If there's any little dip or wobble, I think that getting the corner on that support bar is going to give us the best results.
Cool. All right, for this one, I'm just going to keep auto pass on and do my rough cuts.
Okay. So this is going to be pretty quick. We've got 2 of them, and Jake's just going to hustle through this on auto pass with this 1/4 inch bit. It's going to be pretty easy cutting. Only going down a 1/2 inch deep in 2 passes. We are going through end grain, which is the easiest to cut through of any grain orientation. 2 depth passes, and then 1 little finishing pass for this also. And this is just going to get us to the upper corner of the dovetail on this. We're going to have to come back in with the dovetail cutter to cut the undercuts on this. That select button at the bottom always helps you toggle through different paths if you're hovering over something that you aren't intending to cut. And one more time with auto pass on this side here.
Dookie.
Okay. 1/4 inch cut done. Dovetail cut coming in. We got that dovetail bit right here. Remember the settings on that. That is 13.8 millimeter diameter. And if you're ever wondering what diameter that is, just check on the shank of the bit. It's laser marked on there, so it's easy to remember. 13.8 millimeters. Nice. We're going to Z-touch in exactly the same spot that we did last time. Nice again. And this one we're going to cut with no offset.
Gonna turn that into a pocket just so I stop selecting it. Or into a guide.
Oh, you know what? It might not let you select it to change it because you can't.
I had auto
Oh,
pass
you got
on.
it. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
All right, there we go.
Okay.
All right,
Feeling good?
feeling good. Need to put some blue tape on.
Yeah,
Because
blue
again, we're
tape.
trying to minimize. The other thing that you're going to notice is that I'm moving very slowly when I enter and exit these cuts. And that is really, that's the time where you're going to break a piece free. So just slow it down.
Yeah, this is another one of those trade-offs. We like to say make sure that you're moving quickly through your cuts so you don't burn. But sometimes you need to slow down so you don't get blowout.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Okay. No pressure. All right, so the key here is going to be to plunge all the way down, move cleanly through this cut, make sure you're focused, stay centered, no retraction, and then once you're well beyond the other side but not cutting into workstation, you could retract. Oh, you got it set up so you can just keep going around. All right, that's slick. So, yeah, as long as you've got clearance on that support bar there, definitely go ahead and continue around. Starting here now, a little bit of room between that cut and workstation, but not much. Entering that cut. Coming through, staying on the line. Nice and smooth at the exit. Coming around the end. Plenty of clearance. There we go.
Nice.
Looks good?
Looks good. It helps to know that the bit is just going to be a little bit bigger than the corrected
a little
circle.
bit bigger, yeah.
Kind of gives you allows you to plan it out.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Very happy with that.
All right, so we've got this part. Now we're going to do the opposite side. And it's going to be the same steps. We're going to clear out with the 1/4 inch bit. Then we're going to come in with the dovetail cutter. But our offsets are going to be opposite. We can go down to 0-inch offset with that 1/4 inch bit. And then we can go to the negative offset with the dovetail cutter.
Sweet.
Thinking about that grain direction again.
Trying.
Yeah, this one's not very rifty.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you like that? Cool. Yeah, this looks nice.
All right, same thing back in. Clamping that middle one between the two pins first. And you could do a new scan, or you could just care more about the grid.
I would keep the same scan,
Yeah.
but we are going to regrid for this.
Yes.
Yeah, because again, we want this just to be as accurate as possible. And if you were making a bunch of these and you were super careful about the way that you clamped them up, and you were very careful about making sure that everything was perfectly against these reference pins every time, then you can trust that. But just because we want to nail it on this live session, we're going to go ahead and grid this again, just because the stakes are high here. Sometimes you want to just double, triple, quadruple check.
So probing rectangle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Using that same file, right at 0, 0. And cutting the outside of this shape now.
Perfect.
Back over the 1/4" cutter.
Mm-hmm. And this one we can cut to a 0-inch offset first. So I think at the beginning of the show, we just cut this one to the 0.1-inch offset and did 2 passes with the dovetail bit. Is that right, Jake?
Say that again.
At the beginning of the show, we cut this with the 1/4-inch bit to a 0.1-inch offset and then cut 2 passes with the dovetail bit.
Yes.
I think we should do something different for this one.
All right.
I think we should cut to a 0.1-inch offset and then to a 0-inch offset with the 1/4-inch bit, and then just go to our final dimension with the dovetail bit. Because then we're not going undercutting twice. We're only undercutting the high-risk cut,
Right.
only undercutting once.
Works for me.
Because we've got all this room with the 1/4-inch bit, you know? Why dovetail cut more than you need to? It's so chancy.
All right. Here we go.
Cool.
Just going to do this manually.
All right, so we're doing these outside cuts. We do need to start with that 0.1-inch offset to make sure that we clear out all the material between these 2 dovetail slots here. So Jake's going to take some time to do that. We're going down to a 1/4-inch depth first, and then we'll take this down to a 1/2-inch depth, and then we can take that offset all the way off, so that we're bringing that into the top of this dovetail cut that we're about to make. I wish there was a way for me to hang this whiteboard upside down so that we could look at it as if we were coming from the opposite angle. All right, 1/2-inch deep now. And again, if you're new to Origin, the basics here are you're just going to click that green button to start, follow the dotted line in the direction that it's moving. Roughly try to keep the crosshairs over the dot. You don't need to look at much else. Just try to keep the crosshairs over the dot as you follow that dotted line. And when you get to the end of what you want to cut, go ahead and hit the red button to retract. The gray area surrounding that dotted line is showing you a preview of the area that you're about to cut. So you can see when we change that offset now, that gray area has come inward a little bit right up to the edge of the template that we're working with. And these are our final 4 clearing cuts that we're doing with this 1/4-inch bit.
Cool. It's worth noting that although these are enclosed shapes, notice how I'm just plunging and retracting only the area that I actually need to cut.
Mm-hmm.
That's because when I try to cut all the way around the shape, that's where I zinged workstation.
Yeah, because you're going to the outside of this boundary, not
Right.
staying within the inside of this boundary. So even though we made this boundary only 5/8 bigger than the actual cut, that's actually adding an extra 5/8 now on top of the width of the dovetail cutter. So that adds up to quite a lot. Throwing the dovetail bit in there.
C-touch in my same spot. 13.8.
All right, and now if we look back at the whiteboard again here, this is what we're doing. We're cutting this area here from here to here. Our dovetail cutter is now going this direction. This is our template that we're using, so we want to cut minus 0.144 beyond the edge of our template from an outside cut.
So that gives us a negative 0.144.
144. Yep. There it is.
Cool.
All right, so this is going to be 4 passes, right? 4 individual cuts.
Correct.
Nice.
Being very conscious of where I'm plunging.
Yep, you want to be very conscious of where you plunge. You want to be very conscious of where you retract with these. And here's one that if you're new to Origin, I want to remind you of. You want to keep Origin still when you are plunging, and a little less important when you're retracting, but also still something that you probably want to do. Keep Origin still when you're plunging and retracting. That's something that I see first-timers making a small mistake on. So, a little tip. Just like any other router, really. I think you wouldn't want to use any plunge router by moving it while you're plunging it. All right, last one. Nice, splitting that difference between the workstation edge and the material.
Some really nice curls coming off that.
That's how you know you've got good feed rate there. All right, quick test fit. Oh, yeah.
Sweet. There we go.
Not bad. We didn't even need to use the mallet fixtures that you set up before the show.
Yeah, if you do end up making these a little tighter and you're shooting for that friction fit, cutting yourself 2 little V blocks so you don't damage the nice crisp edge of your stock goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. So that's our impossible joint. It sounds like we are putting the poll back up for some folks who might have missed it at the middle of the show there. So that's nice. Last chance. Enter that poll to enter our giveaway, which we're doing very shortly here. So we're going to give away a dovetail bit, I'm sure.
Definitely.
But it's the end of the show. So let's show off what we made. We've got a impossible joint here. Or should I say, a possible joint. Hopefully you learned something. Talked a lot about dovetails, talked a lot about triangles, talked a lot about studio. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.